If there's two names in gaming that I always associate with horror themes or design, it's Atlus and Konami. With Konami making heavy hitters in horror such as Silent Hill 1, Silent Hill 2, Silent Hill 3, and Silent Hill 4. Then you have Atlus, who just makes the most grotesque and amazing monster designs I've ever seen. It's crazy how a lot of these scary and unnerving designs come from games that are turn-based RPGs, usually dealing with high schoolers. I mean, look at these abominations, they're downright horrifying. So it's always been a dream of mine to see these guys collaborate on a horror game of their own. For years I kept wishing and wishing that this would happen, not realizing my wish was made way long ago. Actually the same year and month I was born, so that would put this game to be 7 days older than me. I got recommended this with another game after my Planet Dob video, and this comment mentioned how obscure the game is and just how little to no info is known about this game. I mean, even I haven't heard of it, and this is coming from someone who tries to find the dumbest, most random games I can possibly find. So now that I'm aware that the company responsible for Silent Hill and the company responsible for the Penis Monster made a game, I knew I had to look into it right away. So before we start, this game never came to America, but was released in PAL territories, which means we do have a full English version of the game, with not the best translations. There's apparently quite a lot of story elements that were lost in translation, but I tried really hard and couldn't find what exactly was lost, but judging the comment came from the only guy who seems to know about this, I'll take his word for it. With how confusing the story gets later on, I wouldn't be surprised if stuff wasn't translated right. But I think now it's time to tell you guys the game's name. The game made by Konami and Atlus is none other than Hellnight in PAL regions and Dark Messiah in Japan. Once you learn about this game, the Japanese name fits way more than the PAL version. For the first time ever, I will say, the Japanese box art is such a downgrade compared to the PAL version. The girl on the cover for the Japanese box just looks like a weird thumb person with no hair, while the PAL box art just feels mysterious enough for me to want to play it. While also browsing for more info on the game, I found this whole guidebook and a bunch of pictures for it. I did find a listing for it on eBay, as most other sites wouldn't let me order from Japan, but as much as I really want this, it's hard to justify purchasing it for $75, especially when I can't even read it. So this is future me coming in just to add this into the video. So I actually was able to get a guide at a reasonable price. And here it is. This is it right here. Still, I faced the issue of not being able to read much of it, but I was able to translate a little bit of it with Google Translate. And I learned a few things that are kind of interesting I wanted to mention here. But I'll also just show off some of the pages and stuff. And also, too, this will all be available to download for all the pages. Down in the description below, you can just download it from there. I'll have a whole like WinRAR or zip file just there. A really unique thing in this game that I found was the fact that this takes place in our world, which makes sense. It takes place in Tokyo, but like no, it takes place in exactly our world with all the events that happened before. The guide mentions the Treaty of Versailles and a bunch of other World War I and World War II stuff. And it tries to, I guess, spin it in a way to why the underground exists in Japan, comparable to our real life counterpart of like the wars we had. There's even like the sarin gas attacks they had in the book. I'll show it here. I don't know why these are here. They're just here. Because you could have just had this not be here at all, and I don't think it would have affected the story segment for this game at all. There's also TD artwork of all the characters and some even side characters, which I think this is the first time I've seen these. So now we have official artwork of the characters, and they're not that good, but we do have official artwork. So that's nice that, you know, at least it's not like the ones that aren't 3D rendered. Overall, there's just like a lot of cool maps and all that stuff, which I find unique, but I don't think that's the interesting points of this. One of my favorite things, though, is at the end of this whole guidebook, there's like this whole mysteries like thing in it where they talk about UFOs and like ghosts and stuff. And as far as I can tell, this has no correlation to the game. It's just here to talk about like random mysteries in Tokyo or whatever. But yes, I did get the guidebook, and it will be available to download for all the pages. They're not the best scans or pictures I could get, but they're doable and they'll work. So yeah, I did cave, and overall, I don't think that it wasn't worth it, but I also wish I could read more of it. Maybe one day I'll get it professionally scanned and actually, you know, try to get someone to translate it with me or something. I don't know. I was able to find an advert for the game, basically just the box art for the Japanese version with some other details, plus a full commercial, which is neat, but doesn't show that much of stuff you couldn't see just by playing the game yourself. If there's any more adverts or whatever, I couldn't find, but I did learn the game was shown off at a Tokyo Game Show in spring 1998, but I found nothing showing it being advertised there. Now it's time to talk about the actual game, and man, is this game something. I never thought I would imagine what a story would be like from the likes of Konami and Atlus, but if you were to tell me it would be anything like Hellnights, then I would only slightly believe you. The game starts off with this long FMV saying the only thing you can do is run away and keep running. Then the name Hellnight is shown as adverts and flashes of people are also shown on screen. This whole FMV is very trippy. Going from the city lights to then showing weird and disfigured monsters, which then leads to the game introducing us to our main characters of the game, but I'll go more into them when they appear in the story. I do want to mention as well, the version I'm playing is patched. For whatever reason in the PAL release, cutscenes have no voice acting as the Japanese was removed. This patch just adds it back in. I felt it wasn't that intrusive to the overall experience, so I just added it. Then we get a whole lore dump of text, so I'll go ahead and read this on screen. It took place in an ordinary subway, a subway accident that took the lives of 56 people. The number of survivors still remains unknown. You were involved in the accident, and what you see is a gruesome scene of blood and rubble just laying scattered about. Lurking in the darkness, you feel the presence of something humble. That's not even a real word. The rest of the stuff will come up later in the game, so I'll explain it when the time comes, but yeah, this is a lot of lore dump for no reason, especially in a missable FMV you can skip. Also, I love the fact this is also the tutorial in a way, as it explains how you need to react if attacked and the various partners you will find. Then we have shots of monsters slowly rising, as then the real title screen appears. Starting the game for real this time gives us another FMV of a building, as we're told it's a research facility in Ichigaya. Also, I'm not going to mention this every time words are spelt wrong, but yeah, old games have horrible translations. I'll bring it up though if it's really funny or worth mentioning. Inside the lab, we see scientists doing science stuff, and before long this glass thing breaks and the screen can be heard with flashes of blood, now showing a mutated man as another scientist runs into him, showing the origin of our monster. Then we get some info how a cult is forming and some people are going missing, which is causing a lot of people to get riled up. We get some more shots showing us a bustling city filled to the brim with neon lights and colorful logos. In the distance, cult members are spreading their words of wisdom and cult propaganda. They're saying stuff about the world ending with the new millennium and just cult fear tactics. I think what's supposed to be us, the player, walks by and then gets chased by these members. We make it to the subway station to try to escape and luckily get on a train before they can catch us. With their protagonist saying this once he knows he got away, "Why are they kept following me?" Then the train hits this man on the tracks, causing it to come to a screeching halt. Showing the man's dead body, we soon learn that this was a scientist from the lab. But before long, his body starts to decay, forming him into this weird, ugly monster. We cut to Naomi, who screams and then apologizes for screaming. We're not sure what's going on till we see the creature start eating someone else from another train car and break through. We run away trying to escape till we run into Ivanov with his team. The monster then shows up and attacks them as they shoot it to take it out, giving us a chance to escape. But the monster is still on her tail. This is when we get introduced to our first form of gameplay, kind of like how Planet Dob was. We have a first-person view and are able to select different things in the room while using items we picked up to progress. Thankfully, the game will make sure you know what's in a room instead of mindlessly clicking on whatever like some games I know. We use the crowbar and find some stairs. With no other option, we head deeper into Tokyo's underground. Now we're in the sewers and Naomi gives us insightful dialogue about how the sewers smell or something, but you know, or something. This sounds like my first script I ever wrote. So if you ever want to write scripts for videos, one of the best tips I can give you is try not to use the same word back to back so frequently. So like, here's a good example. It's like, what's that smell? We must be in a sewer or something. And then literally right after it goes, if we could just find some stairs or something. It just sounds a little off. Like, try not to use two words like that back to back. They could have been like, if we could just find some stairs, we could try to get back to the surface and that would have been fine. Naomi, or at this point we know her just as young girl, just says everything we just experienced back to us, but in the form of questions. Honestly, she will easily be one of the worst partners you can get, but the true ending really would like you to keep her alive throughout, which I definitely did without a problem. So once you're finally able to walk around, the game is basically Shin Megami Tensei 1, but now it's horror. You're only able to walk around and interact with doors that you come across. This will be the majority of your gameplay, so get used to it. From the start though, this game feels very unnerving with how silent everything is, as all you can hear is the random ambient sounds that play. While at first I enjoyed these as they added tension to the environment, they will just get really annoying later in the game, but till you get annoyed hearing them, they serve their purpose really well. This is actually pretty uncanny. I'm actually surprised how little scared I am. I actually turned my volume down a little bit because I got a little scared. I do wish we had some type of footstep sounds or just more ambient noises, but a man can only ask for so much from Konami before they turn it into an idea for a pachinko machine. Naomi will interrupt you to give you a weird iron card with a strange marking on it. This will be your small introduction to the keycard system that will be your main way to get around, and trust me, it will surely not get annoying or old to keep track of everything and where it goes. Now the biggest hurdle you'll be facing through the game is the monster himself. He will show up at random to chase you around and take you out. You will also have no way of fighting back, so you can only really run to avoid it. You can tell when the monster's around as you'll hear this heavy breathing that will fill the once silent void around you. Oh god, oh god, oh god. That is not open. But your first encounter is it falling into the sewers and trying to get you as it moves at a snail's pace. You would be forgiven if you felt this monster was completely worthless, but the monster has a trick up its sleeve. Throughout the game, the monster will start to evolve, turning it from this slow-moving sack of flesh to a monster that is fast and aggressive that would give any marathon runner a run for their money. It gets to the point it can be really tricky to avoid it by running away. A lot of times it comes down to what feels like luck to get away, and you will have to rely more on the environment and locations around you to plan your getaway, but I don't mind it since it creates insane and butt-clenching moments when you do get away. But I think that comes down because they didn't care too much about getting the ending with Naomi, but God forbid you try to get the ending with her while avoiding the monster. I could see this just being the most annoying playthrough of all time. We continue through the poop place and find our way to what's known as the Mesh. It's an underground area of Tokyo built by the military. We're greeted by Razzo as he asks us if we came from above. The reason why it's called the Mesh is because of how linked together this place is, basically allowing anyone to go from one side to the other side. He also taunts us for wanting to leave and says you're welcome to try. Once we get done talking to Razzo, we learn the security system went off, blocking a lot of the pathways we can take. So now it's up to us to try to unlock the gates and rid the security system so we can escape, because if we don't do it, no one else will. The Mesh is a weird but unique area. As much as the aesthetic doesn't change, I still never found myself getting that lost on where I was at thanks to the map and compass, but I highly recommend you play this with a guide, as where you need to go can be really confusing and what items you need and where they need to go can make it a chore at times. It's really hard to try to remember everything you have, or you end up just using the items one by one till it activates whatever you're trying to use them on, which is kind of what I did a few times before I just pulled up the guide. You can go to this appraisal guy, and from what I gathered, he's supposed to give you more insight on your items and what they do to progress, but it took me a good while before I learned that's his reason for being here. There's also this room where you can use this card that you later find to get more information on your surroundings, but I didn't find myself coming back to this area all that much since it just tells you where these locations are in a room and nothing else. But it's probably useful for those that may need this. The guide I was using had an error in it where it told me to get an item from this guy, but it was another guy that gives you the item, so just be careful the guide you're using isn't misleading you. But overall, my guide was still really good besides that one error. This little next thing is not part of the guide or anything that I used, but I did find this Japanese review for the game, and when I translated the text under the picture, it had this horrible picture of Naomi just disfigured with this caption under it, and I bursted out laughing when I first saw this, and I still have no idea why. While traversing the Mesh, many random people come and go along the way. They will give you quests or items to give to others in the Mesh or have you bring back things to them. While here, you'll even uncover more about what the monster that is after you and maybe learn how to actually defeat it. Also during this, Naomi died. But hey, here's this guy. He will end up telling you everything about the Mesh from the different floors and sides all the way to the livestock area. This guy can really help you get more info and get prepared for what's to come, while helping the player learn more about this whole area and how it's an actual living headquarters instead of just dungeons of pain and suffering. The people here really do add a lot of charm to the Mesh. I didn't expect to actually enjoy a lot of these one-off characters, but they really grew on me. I think one of my favorite quests in the game is the headphones quest. It's also one of the few quests in the game with different choices on how to complete it, changing how the game will play out in slight ways. The quest will start you off with meeting this girl named Mika who's bummed out because she has a Walkman that some sweaty and smelly neckbeard gave her, but she doesn't have headphones since her pair broke. And while right now we can't do much with the quest, it's something we can keep in the back of our minds for later, since later down the line we run into another girl wanting headphones named Sugiya. She says if you help her get her headphones back, she will help you find the location of the stairs you've been looking for. Then she goes on to mention how the headphones she lost are the last gift from her father who passed away. She then goes on about how no matter how many times the headphones break, she will continue to get them fixed since these are all she has left of her father. This is why returning the headphones to her feels so impactful. While yes, I could have given these to the other girl who didn't even care for the Walkman because the guy who gave it to her was smelly, I would feel so wrong to not return these to the rightful owner, especially since it's a gift from her father. Now my second favorite quest is with Jinbei here, who just wants a bottle of Tokyo Mesh Vintage. He mentions how it will have a strange effect like making you lose yourself in dreams, 2 drops will make you fly, and 3 will let you dance with the stars in the sky. We end up having one as we picked it up before, and when you give it to him, he's very excited and even proceeds to chug it down. He then tells us how he has no more regrets after drinking that. Jinbei, being so grateful, ends up letting us know that the door behind him is used for a secret passageway. After all that, the last thing he says to us is that he's gonna go lie down. If you highlight him with the cursor, you get the text saying, "Peaceful Jinbei."
Peaceful. Peaceful. Hit him with a crowbar. Oh my god, he actually fucking died?
Yeah, you helped this man have no regrets and then he just passed away. It's a very somber end to this side quest, but it's definitely one that stuck with me. Especially since you will come back through this room a few times and just see Jinbei dead there. It's very morbid and just, oh my god.
Peaceful Jinbei. Jesus Christ.
A really interesting detail comes with the partners in the game, with how things can be different depending on who you have around or if you're alone with no partners. There's this part where you run into the cult members. If you're by yourself, this will lead to a game over, but if you're with a partner, it will play out and you will be safe. Moments like this really encourages multiple playthroughs just to see what interactions you can get. This also doesn't stop with just moments like these, but having partners with you will cause different interactions with other potential partners to happen. And while you will miss out on getting new partners if you have someone with you, it's just so nice to see these unique banters between the characters. They can even sometimes warn you about the monsters being in the location you're at, but you can just ignore them if you want. We run into Yamaoka as he tells us about the bar and how it's a nice place to forget your troubles. He even recommends us a drink called Underground Romance. And you know what, with us being chased and trying to be killed by a monster, why not go get drunk? While on our way to the bar, we run into this man, and I guess if you think about this, these are the game's jump scares as these appear fast and without warning, but he tells us about how there's a serial killer at the bar. He goes on to explain how this guy killed a cop and disappeared. He then says his name is Kyoji Kamiya, and he's certain it's a serial killer. Once inside, we see people enjoying the vibe as it slowly zooms in on a man wearing a deep blue jacket. It's Kamiya, and he just says, "Damn." Which I don't know why I would have expected a cop killer to not have a nasty use of vocabulary. You and Kamiya start to talk as he asks if you're one of the people who survived the subway, which it was 2 of us till...
Well, now that he's... Oh, fuck! Well, rip to Naomi. That bitch is dead. A after party. Chill with all her friends and love to get naughty.
Kamiya soon realizes we know he's a serial killer as he assures us killing us is not on the menu since we're not prey at all. He also mentions why we would ever want to leave since there's no cops down here unlike up on the surface. Kamiya even says how he likes it down here since it feels more like home, as if something calls for him to be here. I'm pretty positive that won't play into his ending later. Then if you come here alone like I did because Naomi decided to be not based and cringe and died, then you get Kamiya as a partner. But I think now it's a good time to start going into the details about the partner mechanics. So there's a reason why Naomi sucks, and it's because she's the only partner who can't defend herself against the monster. She does have an ability to see the monster on the map represented by an orange square that I have no footage of, but I know she does this as the guide in a comment told me, but for the life of me, I couldn't get her to do it. Well, with everyone else, you can fight back, but I didn't know this with Kamiya and...
Oh shit, where the fuck is he? Oh, fuck! Well, rip to the serial killer. Sometimes you just fucking die.
But everyone else can attack the monster, stunning it, and from what I can tell, you can spam this over and over. Just press square and bam, this guy's getting destroyed. But it's a whole lot easier to get the other endings since everyone else can actually make sure you won't just die. With Naomi, you rely more on the paths and the layout of the area to avoid the monster, but it's way more satisfying to just blow the monster away. I now want to use this time to highlight some of the areas and how good these places just feel to look at. While there is a lot of just brick patterns and, you know, the normal stuff here, there is some areas like the livestock area just having this whole section in the middle where the animals would be at, and it's so huge and vast. Mixed with the darkness lingering at the end of the hallways, it makes for a terrifying experience knowing the monster could just be anywhere. Especially since the monster is pretty active in this area, with him seeming to stay in the main area where the pins are. This is also the area where we meet Lino, who has his own music, and it's very unfitting compared to the rest of the game's OST. The next place is very confusing to navigate as it has many floors with stairs and paths leading to different parts of the map, and it's the research area. This has to be my favorite place in the game because of how eye-catching and different it feels. You see, most areas are made to feel cramped and dark to give the player a sense of claustrophobia and the idea the monster could be anywhere lurking in the shadows, but this area is vast and open with the humming of what sounds like distant machinery. I remember just feeling in awe by this area and seeing the strange pillars full of holes. The only real downside in this area is that it's very easy to get lost here, even with the guide, and the monster feels so useless here as it's very, very easy to get away from it since there's so many different paths you can take, and it's so wide and long, he'll never usually catch up to you. But this does feel like a nice breather from the cramped areas you've explored before. This area does have a solution to a puzzle that I really loved, and it's where you use your crowbar and bash the ice and break it. I 100% expected the game to not reward my monkey brain's instinct to just bash something that doesn't work, but instead, it rewarded it. While down here, we run into the best partner in the game, Ivanov, as he's fighting the monster and uses a flamethrower to damage it. So Ivanov's story has him trying to take revenge for the monster for taking out his men that we witnessed at the train tracks. He even ends up recognizing you and apologizes for trying to kill you since he was ordered to kill any organisms down there so the infection wouldn't spread. He goes on to talk about how the monster seems to have limitless potential as he didn't expect all of his platoon to be torn to shreds, so since he has nothing to lose, he's out for revenge to take the monster out and avenge his fallen comrades. This is why I really liked him a lot, since Naomi is just kind of there because she happened to be there with you at the time, and then you have Kamiya, who's just an asshole who tags along because he wants to. So seeing a character have a reason for why he wants to join that isn't just I got nothing better to do is refreshing. I think it also helps the fact that he has this giant ass gun to fight the monster. I do want to add this, whichever partner you have near the end of the game will affect story moments heavily, and I'll cover that more when we get there. I just want to clarify, while some partners are cooler than others, if you're wanting to see a certain ending, you will have to deal with said person all the way through. We go ahead and finish this quest that Lino gave us about finding some guy who stole stuff or whatever, and look, a Konami throwing a Kojima reference into their horror game that is definitely a reference and not me being insane or reaching for something that's not there. I mean, Kojima was working at Konami before this game came out, so coincidence? And if that's not enough, Tetsuya Nomura is here, so yeah, 100% confirmed! And now that we get to meet Tetsuya, he hears we're friends with Sugiya and he's the guy who's been fixing our headphones for her. We then ask if he can fix the elevator for us as the switch is broken, and if we can repair it, it's a free ride back to the surface. We find our way back to the elevator, getting lost a few times. He then tells us he fixed the switch as we should now be good to go. But obviously, things don't go as planned. We're now even deeper than before, and for some reason the game now has music as drum loop plays and never stops the whole time. I even asked if maybe this was an emulator issue and the whole game was supposed to have music, but even loading this game on a PS1 Classic, it still gave the same results, so it's more than likely supposed to be designed this way. I could have also tested it on my PS3, but I didn't really feel like buying a whole Japanese copy just to do that. We walk around down here and find the Holy Ring members as he invites us to the Ceremony of Awakening. Ivan, being a badass, knocks them out, so no cult stuff for us. Then out of nowhere, Renee shows up as she's one of the other partners you could get if you were by yourself. She tells us she's a photojournalist and then rants about how down here sucks. Also, I don't know if this is a translation error or they're trying to give her an accent, but she doesn't use the letter H. She will outright ignore the letters, making her text sometimes downright awful to read. I want to say this is a translation issue, but it's one of the weirdest issues I've ever seen, as normally it's a word or two, not a whole letter missing. She then says how she's gonna head off and then just leaves. We also get to see the monster has changed again and looks quite different, but is dealt with the same thing as before. A giant fucking gun! He weirdly looks like a bootleg Summon Skull to me. While doing more side quests, we finally make it to the underground train station, and Renee is here too to greet us, with her telling us to hurry. I'm not gonna lie, I just thought I forgot the H there, but then I remembered, yeah, no, that's just what the text is like in the game. I literally thought I just kind of fucked up on my script for a second. Renee tells us how most of the Holy Ring members are going to the Great Hall, and we arrive to it as this is when the game takes the biggest 180 I've ever seen and goes from a sort of grounded horror title to something I still have no idea what I'm even witnessing. We find a crack in the temple to stumble upon the Great Hall. We see the Holy Ring Priest as he's very, very deformed. And yeah, I can see where Atlas had a hand in designing the monsters for the game. Ivan then goes off about this time in Africa stopping a witch doctor who was trying to do ethnic cleansing, and despite what TikTok tells you, it's not what this girl makes it out to be. I even like though that Ivan knows how long-winded and pointless his story became, and he just stops and says, anyways, this next part I have to read gets surprisingly sexual without context, and it makes me very uncomfortable.
Then the witch doctor starts talking, is going on, and the hall slowly starts to get hotter and hotter. Like, what am I fucking reading? Like, there's something moving in the air, something alive, and it's getting bigger. What am I reading? Without context, this sounds horrible. Even with context, it still sounds fucking horrible.
And now we're greeted with this FMV of the priest starting the ritual. As they start to all summon something, he goes on to mention the Great Union, a dark messiah, and today's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. Have you ever wanted to have sex? This game will make you come in 30 seconds. Fucks, my husband is dead, and I don't want to remarry. I only want sex. You want to see my pussy? Press the C down. I'm so fucking done. He goes on to say that people are offering themselves to the Dark Messiah, hoping he might awaken. It's why the Japanese version has a better name choice than the PAL region. Everyone then turns to us as the priest says the last sacrifice has arrived. Renee then shows up and starts blasting, saving us from being sacrificed. Then the monster shows up in his final form, and Renee then shoots it for some reason and pisses it off. This is apparently the god they were talking about, and yeah, this god is pissed. The priest hits the red button, causing an explosion, making the place crumble. We fall down into the floor, and soon the darkness is interrupted by Razzo as he tells us to sleep so we can cross over, and once over, we need to find the altar. Razzo then lets out a laugh as the Holy Ring members died with the destruction of the Great Hall. He also mentions that he feels slightly bad for the members since they were being manipulated by that which whispers. It goes on to explain we're on the outskirts of the Hive as it's a world that isn't like our own, a world beyond our imaginations, a place where physics isn't real. He tells us about the hybrid monster that's been chasing us as it's originally from this place. He even mentions that the army is at fault for all of this as they came here and stole the prince's essence, and in return it grew slowly till it was able to form into what it is now. He says if we want to survive, we must find the altar. So I didn't want to mention these areas before when I talked about areas that I like, but the Hive outskirts remind me so much of Majora's Mask. The art style with the circles and weird patterns all around just fits that Majora's Mask theme in my opinion. Coming from the areas before, it really just shows how much the game can shine when the restrictions are lifted and now they're able to make a world that isn't grounded anymore. Then while walking, we stumble upon a cutscene showing the hybrid fighting another monster who's shooting lightning from his hands. And boy, is this something. And now we're here talking to said monster, and this is that which wanders. He explains he knows about us from that which leads, and I hate these names. I can see where Gungrave Gore got its names inspired from. He knows we're after the altar to find the seat of the prince's power. He lets us know the Hive is divided by several functions that we need to use warp points to get to different areas. The warp points will require the Nexus stones that we need to find. He lets us know that which judges place one of the stones within our world, and then he disappears. This is when we begin to travel through till we stumble upon the Ebony Stone and take it. Again, I cannot stress this enough, use a guide in this area. This whole last section has to be the most confusing thing I've ever dealt with, and even with a guide, I still was getting lost. We continue to run into other monsters that all have that dumb naming gimmick, and a lot of these feel so pointless, but the guide tells you to go to them. I will say though, the designs are amazing and weird for them, and you can see the Atlas field shine brightly here. I think it'd be really cool if later down the line Atlas used these monsters for like DLC for Persona 5 or Shin Megami Tensei 5, just like some type of DLC to just represent this game. I think it would be really interesting. We end up finding the altars as you put the stones here, and then this FMV plays, and you do this quite a few times. Putting the stones here gets you into the reactor area, and this feels like we're inside of something, just walking around as everything looks bloody and fleshy. We even run into this weird bug creature that asks us to simulate. We're now at the reactor's heart, making me believe this really is something alive we're traversing in, but the Vermilion Stone is here, so we get it and move on to the next stone we need. We're now in the Hive data storage room, and if it feels like you're missing context how we're getting here, you're not, and the game just jumps to these areas after you put the stone into the altars. We find a terminal and touch it to then be transferred into a weird digital world. And as cool as this area is, it has the worst background music ever, as it's farting dubstep sounds.
Okay, take a left here. Continue east.
But I can't say that I don't love this area. I really think it's the coolest area in the game. It's just sadly the most confusing area. The confusion mostly comes from the fact of how random the paths can feel at times, and you have to talk to these red things to change your hierarchy code, and this will allow you to get access to restricted areas. So you basically have to know which ones you have to talk to and where to go and which areas you can now go into and which you can't. It's really annoying, like I said. You also learn this is the area where the spirits the Holy Ring killed are at, and now they're stuck here. Think of this area as a cyberspace where all the information the monsters have collected are stored, or in this case, the people they've killed. They can even get compressed here, and it's apparently extremely painful. Once you get enough clearance to access the yellow balls, you can actually get more insight on everything, but I don't like how this is all thrown into something that's not required to look at. But we saved some people who are stuck here and soon can get all the clearance IDs that we need. And hey, look, Razzo's here, and he asks if this is starting to make any sense, and I'll give him a hard no. He tells us that we're carrying something very important on us, but it's up to us if we want to deliver it. Razzo then transplants a copy of his bioelectric patterns onto us and then says to go meet that which divides, which are these red things you can interact with. It tells us how the hive has been thrown into confusion as there's two factions who can't seem to agree on why I'm even here in the first place, and then we don't really get much context after, but we finally run into Ivan, and depending on who your partner is, this would be different. Now we're at the main area, and the ancient memory of the hive is here to congratulate us. It informs us we are destined to be the next prince. They mentioned to me how they've been waiting for the prince's essence to return, but it happens to return in a form that's weak and useless. The monster then says they will be waiting at the altar. We open the last altar, and now we're finally out of cyberspace. We're now on the train tracks, as all we can do is move forward till we find a door and end back up at the starting area of the game. Going through this door down the hall has us meet the priest, who tells us to forget our whole life here and just abandon it. He also thanks us for our help, as with me, the Great Union and the Dark Prince will all become one. Now, I have no idea why Hellnight decided to do this, but it uses every stock scream sound effect you can think of here, even the most well-known stock screams of all time, and boy was this immersion breaking instantly.
Oh shit, I'm okay, yeah, here it is. Wait, that sound effect? That was that loud screaming sound. Hold on. I've heard that. Yeah, that's another that's another stock sound. I've heard that one many times too. Yeah. That one I've heard a lot too. That one I literally have heard on YouTube. The Wilhelm scream, it's fucking in here? Are you serious? That is fucking beautiful. I love that. Oh, I love that they added that fucking scream in here. Now, this whole segment completely changes how the ending and everything will play out, and since I'm here with Ivan, we get to see his members talk to him one last time, blaming him for how they died, and the whole scene of him having to hear the last words of his friends is very heartbreaking. A man who's already facing survivor guilt has to be hit head on by the men who died, telling him it's all his fault. Also, we have a moment where Naomi tells me how we abandoned her, and it hurts so bad, and I mean, she wasn't wrong at all. Honestly, she kind of comes off as like a manipulating asshole here, telling me how she was so scared and froze, and somehow it's my fault she couldn't just run away. Also, the weirdest choice of music plays during this whole encounter. I was so frightened, I didn't know what to do. All I could do was stay where I was, terrified to move.
We even run into Kamiya, and he spouts how the Dark Messiah is already waking up, and we can't stop him anymore, and the world will soon be in ruins. Kamiya then tells us he's given his soul to the Dark Messiah and is now part of the Hive. We run into another friend of Ivan as he asks how the girl is doing, the one he adopted after killing her father in Biafra? It's another translation issue. He was shot trying to protect his own daughter, and it's why he shot at Ivan and then was killed for doing so. We can clearly see the effect it has on Ivan as he doesn't want to hear about it. The girl even tried to block out the death of her father, even as her face was covered with blood. Danny tells Ivan how she was staring at him and was looking at the blackness in his heart, trapping her in fear as she was unable to react after seeing what he did to her father. The illusion even taunts Ivan, saying how even if he's suicidal, what about all the men who wanted to live and were just following orders? The fact that a lot of them are dead far, far away from their homes, never to be reunited with their families, as there isn't even a body to bring back. Ivan remains silent after hearing all this, just to say this to Danny. Rest now, Danny. You've earned your rest. Renee is here as well, and she's not sure what's going on with her. She keeps having a vision, but it fades away. Something is biting her shoulder, causing it to have a burning pain. Then she asks if she's dead. We finally run into a witch whispers he's the one who made all the illusions for us to deal with to overcome. Ivan tells the monsters that he must be the one who's been using our fears and turning it into energy for the city and using it to resurrect the Dark Messiah. That which whispers just laughs and then hands us our last stone. We use a stone to open the altar, and now we're finally in the last major area of the game, the Hive altar. We even run into Razzo again as he greets us and tells us going through the gate is the last thing we need to do. He then says we need to think about why the altar is even here and what its purpose is for why it was created. Then finishes off with thinking about how we even got here as well. We continued forward as we're walking in a vast sea of darkness while going through the most unique doors I've ever seen in gaming, then an FMV of a monk talking about how they lost power to the Hive while in orbit, and this caused it to plummet down to our planet and get buried deep in the Earth's crust, which then shattered the prince upon impact. The prince remained dormant as life soon evolved on planet Earth, which is what they call prey, and somehow we had the prince's essence inside us all. This shows itself through the emotion of fear, requiring us to be scared so they can harvest more of the essence. This just feels like a more mature plot of Monsters Inc. now that I'm thinking about it. When they learned about me, they knew they could get more essence than ever before, but when I was brought here, they soon learned I wasn't like the other prey. That I carried this very essence of the prince inside of me, making me the Dark Messiah. Razzo shows up again and says how the chance for the prince to rule the world has failed. He mentions as well how the Hive ceased functioning when it entered the Earth's atmosphere, with the core being scattered across the planet. He finishes off by saying, "Prince, you have lost. The planet has beaten you." Razzo then is able to send us to the area where their altar's power source is, as it's up to us to use the stones to take them down. Now this has to be the worst part of the game, as it's just very slow and easy to get lost in. I even somehow missed one of the reactors and the game let me still continue on, so I had to restart the section again. Then you're also dealing with the monster chasing you, and it seems the spawns here aren't random and actually predetermined, so no matter what you will run into him. But after what felt like hours, we find the last flame pillar and use the crystal on it, and the monster collapses and dies. We then see all the monsters freeze. Razzo congratulates us as the Hive will now shut down and slowly turn into stone. He tells us to go to the elevator and enjoy our freedom. Ivan asks why he's helping us if he's one of them, with Razzo just saying he wasn't helping, so go. We make it into the elevator and try to leave as this cutscene of the reactor blowing up starts to play, and we barely make it out alive. Now for the ending, this scene will play, but depending on who you come out with, it will have a different voiceover. Unless you have Kamiyata on your side. He, does whatever this is.
お前だったのか。ずっとガキの頃から俺の胸の中で囁き続けていたのは今でも覚えてる。ガキの頃、道端に子猫が捨てられてた。小さな声でミーミー泣いてるそれを可愛いと思った。抱き上げようと近くに寄ったら胸の中で声がした。その命を食えってな。わけがわからなかった。一体自分が何をしようとしているのか、自分が何を望んでいるのか。俺は泣きながら子猫を殺した。その時初めて知ったよ。俺は喜んでる。これが胸の中にどす黒い化け物を飼ってる俺たちの人としての終わりとすればそう悪くはない。全ては闇の中に消え去る。そして全ては闇の中から生まれるんだ。行こうか。俺たちが新たなる闇の救世主ダークメサイアになる。
But yeah, this was Hellnight, a game that has a lot going for it, but sadly not enough recognition to see the light of day for most gamers. While I'm here though, just like Planet Dob, I have scaled all the FMVs and will be releasing it alongside this video, but I do want to mention, since the game loves doing it a lot, the weird blur effect did mess it up a little with the AI conversion, but overall these are pretty close to perfect as they can get. I also want to thank Galvatron for recommending me this game, as I really enjoyed my experience with this, and I hope I did the game justice and helped bring some light to the game, even if for now it's small cracks waiting to burst open. But yeah, if we only could get another attempt with the Konami and Atlas teaming up, but a man can dream. With that, I hope you guys are enjoying 61 Days of Spook, and I'll see you all next time.